That's what I said this morning.
Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting of the Central Florida Facilitators Club 995H to order. Thank you to everyone for being here this evening. If you're visiting, please make sure to sign the guest book, which we'll pass to you momentarily. And also know that the restrooms are down the hall. Make your first left, and then at the very end, you'll see them on your right. Phone or electronic devices, please make sure to put them on silent. And at Toastmasters, we provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Through this mission, each Toastmaster gains a clear understanding of the club's purpose, and the organization as a whole benefits from a shared set of values and beliefs. Please help me welcome our thought and pledge leader this evening, Mr. Richard Sapp.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. In a time when business and politics have never been so mingled, our thought comes from our 40th president, Mr. Ronald Reagan. The best minds are not in government. If any were, business would hire them away. Please help me stand and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam? Or no?
Yeah, wait. Madam President.
Madam President, Jaye.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and wonderful guests. I'm happy to see everyone here this evening. As we get started, the first thing I would like to do is have each one of our guests stand up, give us your name, what you do, and what brought you here, and what you're hoping to find at the meeting today. So.
My name is Pat McKechnie, and I work for the U.S. Postal Service. I work for our National Account Sales team, and I belonged to Toastmasters back in 96, 97, 98, and I enjoyed it, and I've been trying to get back ever since. Obviously not as quickly as I should have, but so I'm just getting at your butt.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been here before. I'm a customer here.
What's your name?
A resident. Jim Smith.
Okay.
And I just showed her what I used to fly airplanes in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
How many years? About 33 to be exact. And after I retired, I had health problems and stroke and all that, so I didn't get back here. So here I am, and I saw this noise down the hall. I said, man, I need to go find out what's going on. So I came down and
Yes, thank you.
Enjoy our meeting tonight. I want to bring up something that some of you guys may say it's not appropriate at this point in time, but a number of you know that Tony's mom is going downhill really quickly. I would like to know if anybody is interested in whether we should do it from our club treasury or if we should all, if we maybe could all look at the idea of kicking in a few dollars to send some flowers, etc. I think that it would mean a whole lot to both of them if we did that, and I'm just bringing it up. I would like for maybe you guys to think about it and either give me some thoughts or give me a motion to proceed with us trying to do something. Okay? So I'll bring it back up later at the end of the meeting. That'll give you guys some time to think about it. And Tony obviously is not going to be here for a while. She's not going to be here next week either for our contest, so we have a lot to do. And our executive meeting is this evening. We hope to go through quickly, but we've got to talk about some of that. So that's what I wanted to say there on a very serious note, and we need to send our thoughts and prayers to both of them, both Tony and her mom, May. All right, let's get moving. A couple of things I want to point out. On the tables there are the little slips of paper where you guys can make comments for the speakers and do your voting and so forth. Please remember to do that. And to vote for the person you think is the most improved. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our Toastmaster. If our Toastmaster this evening was on top of her speeches, as she is with Judy Sandals and social media trolling, she'd have her competent communicator completed by now. But when it came time to decide between preparing a 5-minute speech or enough witty remarks to last an entire evening, she opted for the latter, the Toastmaster role. Here to take a look at our scandalous political past while also making sure the meeting ends on time, please welcome our Toastmaster for the evening, Kristin Williams.
Okay, so it's a pleasure to be here and serving as your Toastmaster this evening. Before we get started, I wanted to know if there are any additional updates to the agenda. So
Just announce the one that it is.
Oh, okay. Well, Julian will be serving as our supervisor of elections this evening, and Pardeep's speech, our timer will want to note this, it lists 5 to 7 minutes, but it is actually 6 to 8.
Which one? The first one?
Yes, speech number 2.
Number 2. Second.
Or, I'm sorry, number 1,
Number
Pardeep's
one.
speech.
Our first speaker,
First speaker.
First,
giving project number 2.
Oh, on paper.
6 to 8.
Yeah. All right. So trolling the internet, channel surfing really isn't what it used to be back in the day. Before, I feel like I could scroll through Instagram, you'd see the occasional, the selfie pic, a picture of food, traveling, maybe an engagement announcement, the important stuff, like Beyonce's announcement last week, she's having twins. Now I feel like I can't do anything without seeing some type of political scandal or agenda related to our 45th president. So in honor of President's Day, this upcoming Monday, I'm giving the 40th president a little break, a little breather, and taking you all down a stroll down Scandal Lane. Well, we'll learn a little bit about some of the 45 guys that came before him and the scandalous activities that they got themselves into. But before we do that, I'd like to hear from our functionaries this evening. If we could have Renee, our grammarian and awe counter.
Fellow Toastmasters, as grammarian, I have 2 basic responsibilities. The first is to give the word of the day, to expand our vocabulary, and I have chosen the word canard. C-A-N-A-R-D. A false or unfounded rumor or story. The tabloid included some of Hollywood's oldest canards. And it's funny that you're talking about politics. I wasn't planning on choosing this word. I just found it. It seemed to fit it perfectly.
Perfect.
Okay. If you have an opportunity to speak, please do your best to try to use the word of the day. I will track those who use the word of the day. Those who do not use the word of the day will be fined 25 cents. Guest members and those who are not giving their icebreaker speech will not be fined. I'll also listen for colorful imagery and use of exceptional vocabulary and grammar and I will suggest improvements in grammar as needed. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. We have our timer this evening.
One of the skills of Toastmasters is to practice expressing a thought within a specific time. As a timer, I am responsible for monitoring time for each speaker in each meeting segment. I will operate the timing signal indicating to each speaker how long he or she has been speaking. For our prepared speeches to qualify for voting, speakers must speak not less than 30 seconds under the minimum of the range. In the 6 to 8 minute case, that would be 5.5 minutes, and not more than 30 seconds over the range, not more than 8.5 minutes. For the 5 to 7 minute speech, it's 4.5 minutes and 7.5 minutes. Now, for the table topics, those speakers are to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. So the 1 minute is the minimum and 2.5 minutes is the maximum. For the evaluators have 3 minutes. So you want to be more than 1.5 minutes and no more than 3.5 minutes. I will put the timer on here for the speakers at the minimum of their range, 6 minutes. Then the yellow will be 7 minutes and the red will be 8 minutes. Or in the case of the 5 to 7, 5, 6, and 7 for the red. And I will follow suit in the same fashion with the table topics and with the evaluator speeches in their ranges. And that is what I will be doing this evening. Thank you.
Supervisor of Elections.
This is the ballot ticket, and I invite our guests and our members to fill out comments to each speaker and then vote for the different speakers as you feel that they did the best job. And as vote counter, I will pick up your ballots for best speaker, best table topics, best evaluator, and most improved, and also the comments that you may have for each speaker. I will tally the results for our award presentations at the end of the meeting. Can't count very well, but I'll do my best. I flunked arithmetic. And I will also pick up any comments you might have written for the speakers or any meeting participants. So if somebody really annoys you, let them know. And deliver the comments to the appropriate person. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, sir. Let's start it off with a founding father, the principal author of our Constitution, and the 3rd President of the United States. That's really not all our boy Tom is known for. He's a man with many hats, and while he was the 3rd President of the United States, he was the 1st president to get caught with his pants down when he was charged with having an affair with a slave, Sally Hemings, and in fact, fathering a child. Jefferson denied claims throughout his existence, but DNA testing in 1998 proved that he was more than likely the father of one, if not all, well, not all, I can't verify that for sure, but a few of Sally Hemings' children. Speaking of people with children, that leads me to introduce our first speaker for the evening. He has walked this planet for more than 30 years, but when it comes to public speaking and Toastmaster, he is still a newborn. He thinks he is not afraid of doing mistakes and learning from them. I would say he has the softest voice in our group that is even hard to hear. Please help me welcome the shy young man with a thick Indian accent, Pardeep.
Good evening, everybody. today is something that's very important to all of us and that we all do during nighttime. Some of us do it during the day too. And Jonathan, sorry, it's not what you're thinking about. We'll talk about it some other day. Our topic today is our sleep habits and how they impact our longevity and overall health. So let's find out. Did you know that nearly 65 million Americans have sleep problems? Either they have a problem going to sleep or continuing to sleep. So many of us seem to underestimate the power of sleep. We all understand sleep is important because that's the first thing that comes to our mind when we talk about rest, but we take it for granted that even if we sleep less, it will still be okay. I would acknowledge that I used to sleep 5.5 hours, and my wife and the little one would still be sleeping, but I would be like, why waste time sleeping? I would rather read a book or do something else, but not sleep. And this is when I found out about this study on longevity and sleep, where researchers found out lack of sleep could be very injurious to your health, and people who slept either less than 6 hours or more than 9 hours, they shortened their lives by an average of 9 years compared to people who slept 7 to 8 hours a day. So just imagine losing 9 years from your life not for having enough sleep is a very serious cost to pay. And if you think that sleeping more on the weekends and less on the weekdays would make the cut, not really so. Because a medical college research in Qatar found that for every 30 minutes of weekday sleep loss, or risk of obesity increases by 17%, and risk of insulin resistance increases by 39%. And we were talking about presidents. So our ex-president, Mr. Clinton, is well known for sleeping 5 to 6 hours a night. He picked up his habit from the college days, where one of his professors mentioned that the most successful people in life, they need the least sleep. So he used to sleep less, and many experts believe that it was one of the reasons where he had to go through a heart surgery at 50, though he had very less risk of cardiovascular disease. I really don't think it has anything to do with his scams, but still, 5 to 6 hours is not really what he needed to do. So let's talk about productivity and how sleep impacts productivity. So a study from Harvard Medical School found that lack of sleep costs American economy a lot. Can anybody guess what's the number?
350 billion.
The number is $63 billion a year. You were close, but yes. And it's not because employees are not showing up to work. It's not because of absenteeism. So we are still showing up at work, but it's impacting our ability to perform. The concept they call is absenteeism, which really means being sick in some way, but showing to work anyway. We all have had days where we were either having headache or a cold or we were tired, but we ended up being at work anyway. So we are present, but we are not just in the game. Losing just 90 minutes of sleep can reduce daytime alertness by nearly 1/3, and that's the impact on our productivity. So let's talk about performance and sleep relationship. So you may have all heard of a study that was done on human performance, and what they found is any elite performer, they need 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to reach at the top of their game. So this 10,000 number was very much publicized. What was not publicized was all the best performers in any field, on an average, they slept 8 hours and 36 minutes. So if you really want to be at the top of the game in whatever you do, really consider sleeping more. Unless you are a nighttime security guard, then I would recommend not doing it in the nighttime. And let's talk about safety on the roads, because we are a threat on the road when we sleep less. Drowsiness can slow reaction time as much as being drunk. And National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, they estimate that fatigue because of lack of sleep is a cause of 100,000 crashes every year, and around 1,550 crash-related deaths every year just in the United States. And if you are looking to lose weight, consider sleeping more because lack of sleep increases the hormones that make us hungry, and it reduces the hormones that sends signals to our brain saying we are full. So we all agree that sleep is important. Let's talk about ways what we can do to get better sleep. And we all would have heard about maintaining a better schedule, or reducing stress from your lives, or reading books. And reading books is very, very effective for me because I just fall asleep when I read books. I wish that was not true for me, but anyhow. Another research says avoid exposure to bright light in your bedroom because our brain responds to bright light by inhibiting the production of melatonin, a sleep hormone that makes us sleepy. So recommendation is, couple of hours before going to sleep, do not use your cell phones or any sources of bright light. Another thing, if anybody is having sleep issues, so many studies say that try kiwi fruits a day for 2 weeks, 2 kiwi fruits, because that's a heavy source of melatonin. And melatonin, which is famous for being a sleep hormone, it also does another function, which is fighting of cancer cells. So when we are sleeping, it's fighting of cancer cells. And the way it does apply to cancer is, when we are sleeping, it's fighting of cancer cells to get rid of those cells. And just to see if this function really applies to breast cancer, some of the researchers in a medical college in Boston, they came up with this crazy idea that, hey, the blind women, they can never see the light. So their melatonin production is always on. And we all have this gland in the center of our brain that does produce melatonin whenever it's dark. So they studied these blind women because melatonin production is always on, and guess what they found out? Blind women are 50% less likely to have breast cancer. And another thing, women who work in night shift, they are more prone to have breast cancer because melatonin production is peak between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. Even people living on brighter lit cities or streets, they seem to have more chances of getting a cancer, and that's why recommendation is to sleep in a perfectly dark room. So that concludes our talk this evening, and these are all the wonders that a good night's sleep can do for all of us, and I would seriously encourage each one of you to consider it in your daily lives as you continue your life journey. Thank you very much.
Can I get a minute on the clock, please? And feel free to make any comments for Pardeep as well. So if you thought political corruption was just a 21st century deal, you'd be wrong. It was actually Ulysses S. Grant forte, our 18th president of the United States. So Grant's presidency came with a number of scandals and fraudulent activities, but his greatest accomplishments center around some of my favorite things, gold and whiskey. So for the purposes of this tidbit, we'll focus on the latter. The whiskey ring scandal was a bribery and tax evasion scandal among members of Grant's cabinet and whiskey distillers. Long story short, money was pocketed on both sides that should not have been. Our next speaker this evening is excited about entering the International Speech Contest next week. Since this is his only practice, he asks that you please all evaluate his speech and give him your thoughts for improvement. Please also sign your name so he may be able to ask questions if need be. Help me to introduce our second speaker this evening, Charlie Baudelaire, with his speech, Getting Out of the Darkness.
Did you know that approximately 1.3 million people commit suicide worldwide every year? Did you know that for each one that commits suicide, 25 have tried? Did you know that I was one of them? To know and be aware of suicide is paramount to saving lives. Madam Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests, let me take you into the dark for a minute or two. And don't worry, I'll bring you out of the darkness. Imagine, as a 7-year-old to the age of 14, being thrown into the arms, open arms, of a perverted, sadistic priest that happened to be my uncle. He wasted no time in acclimating me to culture shock. For the first evening, I experienced, tasted, and drank my own blood from the facial slaps that I received just to show me that he was boss. In the weeks and months that progressed, he introduced a strap that he used on the bare skin. No parts of the body were spared. Unbeknownst to me, that's when I entered the 5 steps of grief. The first one being denial. I'm a 7-year-old boy, what am I doing here? I want my mother back. I haven't done anything wrong. I can now recall when I stepped into the second step, which is anger. It didn't take me long to realize that my pain was his pleasure. He enjoyed hearing me scream. So I rebelled. I decided I wasn't going to give him the pleasure of hearing me scream, so I bit my lip bloody until he broke me. It got to the point where I couldn't stand it anymore, and I had to scream, "No more! No more!" Thankfully, a few seconds later, a cloud came over me and I passed out. This became a routine. On the third step of the 5 grieving, which is bartering, yet again, he introduced me later on to another form of torture. Besides the face slapping sessions, that strapping, one day he pulled me out by the hair and dragged me into a dark walk-in closet with nothing in it except a bucket and a roll of toilet paper. He even sealed the door so there would be no light. And I panicked. I went around the walls, touching all the walls. I didn't know what to do. Finally, I dropped to my knees and I began to pray. And pray and pray. I was taught that if you wanted God to listen to you, because he was very busy, you had to pray a lot. So I prayed for weeks, months, even years, until reality finally set in. And I realized that I might as well be wishing upon a star. That's when the 4th step and the most dangerous one came in, depression. I had no hope. I had no light at the end of the tunnel. I felt like I was a mouse on a wheel, spinning. My brain was spinning, but I couldn't rationalize anything except to obey orders. I did not feel like I was a human. I wanted out. So in the dark room that I knew so well by then, I measured my steps and I ran as hard as I could against the brick wall. Head first. All I did was knock myself out. I never reached the fifth one, which is acceptance. Because thankfully, I was rescued. Now you can come out of the darkness. I did very well when I was rescued. I had great help. I met my family again. The therapists were great. They took me out of danger. I felt human again. And even though I still to this day have little remnants of anxiety and sadness, I've achieved great things. I've had great jobs, great careers. I've had a great family. I have 5 grandchildren. And now I have the dream job. I even get paid to give hope to wounded warriors. Let me give you my secret for longevity. Friendships. If it hadn't been for friends that carried me through all these years, I wouldn't be here today. So here's my challenge. It's great to have low-maintenance friends. But reach out and touch someone. That may be a high maintenance once in a while, because you're getting a friend with benefits. For every smile you give them, they'll give you 2. For every hug, they'll hold you until you can't stand it anymore. And when in need, they'll be there for you. I guarantee it. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Charlie. Can we put 1 minute on the clock? And also take this time, if you will, to vote for best speaker. Do that after.
We need to know if they qualify.
Oh, right. So 1 minute on the clock, then we'll do time. Yeah. And could we get a time to report to those speeches, please?
Pardeep Jindal, 6 to 8 minute required time, 7 minutes and 42 seconds, he qualifies. Charlie Bombalier, 5 to 7 minute required time, actual time, 6 minutes and 45 seconds, he qualifies.
Awesome. Thank you. You take a moment and vote for best speaker as I share with you a third political scandal. So I'll admit that some of you may be well versed in this, others might just be scratching the surface like I am over the last 24 hours, but Iran-Contra, one of the biggest political scandals of all time, and came to light during Ronald Reagan's administration, when it was discovered that senior members of his administrations were secretly facilitating the sale of arms to Iran, which was at that time the subject of an arms embargo. So basically, money that had been obtained through selling arms to Iran was given secretly to the revolutionary Contras of Nicaragua. Other than helping the Contras, the hope was that in doing this and selling the weapons to Iran, terrorists would be more willing to give up hostages. Needless to say, the scandal resulted in some major congressional hearings and a lot more research to follow up on my part. Now for my favorite portion of the evening, table topics. So our table topics master has been a Toastmaster for 11 years now. During her time in Toastmasters, she has served in multiple club officer roles. Area governor, division governor, and District 84, the 2016 Fall Conference co-chair. She is very excited about being here this scandalous evening and sharing table topics with you. Please help me welcome our distinguished Toastmaster, Susan Morgan.
Good evening, everybody.
Welcome.
Good evening.
And for our guests, table topics, a fun little thing that we do here in Toastmasters. I will be asking a question and then calling on someone to stand up and give a short 1 to 2 minute speech on what I talked about. Or you can turn around and switch it to something else if you don't like the subject. So I'm going to start with, when was the last time you tried something new? I'm going to pick on Renee.
Thank you, Madam Table Topic Master. Gosh, last time I tried something new. I would have to say the last time I tried something new, well, every time I start a new job, I'm trying something new. So I started working at my current job as a counselor for a little over 6 months. So that was something very new. I'm still find myself getting accustomed to working with the young girls there, and getting comfortable in my role as a counselor. And every day is a new experience working with young girls, teenagers. So every day is a new experience. We have 40 young ladies in our program right now. So every day I feel like I'm trying something new, either a new treatment with the young ladies or a new approach. Or just another way to try to reach them or connect with them. So for me, in my current profession, every day I'm trying something new. Thank you, ma'am.
What is the most sensible thing you've heard someone say? Okay. The most sensible thing you've ever heard someone say, Kristin.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. So the most sensible thing I've ever heard someone say, to be really honest, I can't think of the exact phrasing of it in particular, but I remember it being when I was at work going down a really long rabbit hole like I normally can get myself into, scrolling through spreadsheets, doing formulas, pulling data, to come up with like a 4 to 5 page novel on here's why we can't do this thing right or the way it is, and here's all the things we need to change. And the idea was just like, don't try to overcomplicate it, just keep it simple. Usually the simplest things give you the best results. So now I usually try to just do that. Keep it simple, follow the straight line, don't go into rabbit holes if I don't need to, and ask a lot more follow-up questions before going down the rabbit hole so I have a clear understanding of what it is that people are asking me, which we're not at a minute. There you go.
What gets you excited about life? Richard.
Excited about life. This is going to sound like the cheesiest answer, the dumbest answer, but it's the truth, which is being productive. In any way, shape, or form, it can be through work, It can be through physical activity, it can be through accomplishing things in the Competent Communicator and the binder, which I brought for the first time today in weeks to have filled out. It can be working on the car, it can be literally anything. But what gets me most excited is having that feeling of accomplishment. There is so much that goes in, so much personal satisfaction that goes into these things that people take for granted, such as doing yard work. It is so satisfactory to get out there and work on your yard and have it feel good and make it whatever it is that you want it to be, that frankly, any sort of productivity like that is going to be what gets me excited. So I encourage all of you to look into some of those smaller things that aren't as big as accomplishing the great and find happiness.
Can't wait for Richard to come to my house to be about Saturday.
Minimal.
What do you wish you spent more time doing? What do you wish you spent more time doing? Let's see, I'm going to pick on you, Julian.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. My dream is when I retire, which might be soon. I'm toying around with it. I want to take a trip with my wife around the world. Now, so far we've been to Italy twice. We took a Mediterranean cruise 2 years ago, which was awesome. We have been to the Baltic Sea and cruised the Baltic Sea about 3 years ago and went to St. Petersburg and Amsterdam. Wow, check out those coffee houses in Amsterdam. They don't sell coffee. I found that out. However, there are places that are a bit far away for us right now because it does take, a 3-week vacation when you have a business to run and you're a small business, meaning you don't have a ton of people and you can get away, is a bit challenging to get away. 3 weeks is about as much as we can handle if we want to come back and still have something to come back to. And when you talk about China, like my brother-in-law and his wife and some folks took a trip to down under this January. They went on a cruise in Australia. But that was over a month. And that's a long time for us to take off. Going to my son and his girlfriend live in California. They found tickets, $400 round trip to Japan. They bought the tickets and said, you know what, we'll figure it out later. And they went over Thanksgiving weekend to Japan for 3 weeks. Now, I guess in my family we'll have this travel bug. So I'm going to retire, I'm going to take 3 to 4 months, and I'm going to go all around the world until I get homesick and come back. Madam Tabletop.
What can you do today that you were not capable of a year ago? Let's see. Do you want to try? You don't have to. You can say no.
God, I'm not very quick on my feet. I used to be able to do this.
You can pass this
What?
time if you want.
Yeah, I'll pass this on.
Okay. Let's see. How about, oh, I've been calling on everybody. Okay, Jaye.
What can I do today that I was not capable of before? What I can do today that I was not capable of before is live on my own. I had a daughter who lived with me up until, a couple of years ago. And this last year, past November of 2015, she got married. And now, I am looking forward to the day that she tells me, Mom, in about 10 months from now. And before, I couldn't look forward to that. I couldn't be really getting excited about that idea yet. And now, I still feel like I'm the oldest person I know who doesn't have grandchildren yet. Believe me, that's not a fun idea, but I'm looking forward to that day. I'm excited about the idea of being able to play with grandchildren. And a year and a half ago, not so. It was a little too early. Cannot wait. Madam Tabletop.
Toastmaster, I think we are complete.
Okay.
Can I have a timer's report, please?
I have to put me in here. Okay, yes. All right, Renee Taylor when was the last time you tried something new? 1 minute and 23 seconds, she qualifies. Kristin Williams, what's the most sensible thing someone said? Time, 1 minute and 2 seconds. You've got to work on it. You qualify. Richard Sapp, what is the most exciting thing that you have found about life? Accomplishment, 1 minute and 9 seconds, you qualify. Julian, what do you wish you could spend more time doing? I needed that one. 2 minutes and 17 seconds, you qualify. And Jaye Major, what can you do today that you couldn't do before? 1 minute and 20 seconds, and I qualify. That's my report.
Thank you. So does anyone know who the only president, at least to Google's recollection, is to ever turn in their resignation? And please vote for best table topics. I really thought I had my outline, I had the red marks, I even had asked for timer's report. Anyway, does anyone know? Yes. So the first time I ever heard about the Watergate scandal was in a movie called Dick that starred Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams. I was like maybe 12 or 13 years old, but they played some teenage reporters. But that was a completely different picture than what the reality was in the 1970s as a result of the 1972 break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C. Nixon's administration attempted to cover up any of their involvement, and the scandal eventually led to the resignation of Nixon and the indictment, trial, and incarceration of 43 people, including dozens of Nixon's top members of his administration. So before I leave you this evening, I just want to say those are a handful of presidential scandals that we actually know about. And it got me thinking, like, could you imagine how many things were actually really going down back then before we had all of this technology and media outlets and social media? Like, people probably got away with a lot. Like our general evaluator, who's up next. And he's been involved in many office scandals, including, but not limited to, and I'll say I can attest to this, having been a previous coworker, letting employees clock out early, hiding the leftover pizza in the break room for his personal consumption later, instead of allowing other employees to have some, and taking entire rolls of toilet paper from the supply room to his desk. Please help me in welcoming our general evaluator this evening, Mr. Richard Sapp.
It says paper towels, not toilet paper. I wasn't taking toilet paper to my desk. That's weird. All right. So for our guests and members this evening, this is the portion of the meeting that purposes. First one is to introduce our upcoming evaluators who will evaluate the speeches of Pardeep and Charlie, as well as evaluate the meeting as a whole, to see where we can improve, what we did well, etc., etc. So, getting straight into it, our first evaluator this evening can attest to the fact that proper sleep will add years to your life and life to your years. He can also attest to evaluations removing any scandals from a speech and indeed take it from good to great. Please welcome Jonathan Dunn the Fourth.
Did you know that 10 out of 10 speeches will drastically improve with 8 hours of sleep, 7 of which is spent in REM, and only 1 pee break for the males in the room that are over 40. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and especially you, my great new friend Pardeep, that may be a slight canard, but the reality of the matter is that tonight we are going to take that speech from very good to great with an examination of the structure, the content, and delivery. First, we're going to start with the structure. We always want to look at the opening when giving a speech because that's where the audience is grabbed. And Pardeep used a very classical technique that many speakers before you and I'm certain after will use. And you said, "Good evening." And then you got into the body of the speech, where I really liked in your system, you had a lot of statistics, and then you used a lot of emotion. Statistics tell, emotion sells, and there was a lot of great information for us in there personally about what taking better bodily care of us can do for our lives. And then you closed us down with yet another classical technique that many have used before you, and I'm certain many will use after. You basically told us that the presentation was ending. Now, if I could offer you any feedback for improving your structure, there really were a lot of wonderful statistics in there. And while I usually like to use a story to begin with, you could have started with, did you know 65 million Americans suffer from chronic sleep disorders? Did you know from a business standpoint that over $63 billion were lost last year in the workforce? And finally, did you know we almost lost a beloved president at the age of 50 from a heart attack that could be directly correlated to his lack of sleep? And then you could get into something emotional about that could be our future. And then get into a, let's talk about this. The content of your speech really is directly tied into the objectives. Did you have a good outline that was easy to follow? Check, yes. Did you have a clear message? Absolutely. Take better care of yourself. Did you have a clear conclusion? It was very clear. Now, how could you have improved your content? I want to see you create more intimacy up here with us. You were kind of just pile driving us with information. And the part about drunk driving would have been a great opportunity there, because we've all driven with less than 8 hours of sleep. Your delivery, there were no rapid eye movements. You had great eye contact. Your appearance looked like you got plenty of rest, and your energy was like you got plenty of rest. Snoring, there's a little vocal variety to snore. Let's have you a little more vocal variety. Great job, Pardeep. I look forward to your next speech. Mr. General Evaluator.
Excellent speak or evaluation. Pardeep, how many hours of sleep does a person get in a lifetime? Do you know? Like 10,000 hours to become a master. I'm wondering, am I a master of sleep yet? Probably. Our next evaluator once investigated a presidential scandal as part of his time in student government at the University of Florida. His final report clearly showed evidence of wrongdoing, but unfortunately, it went public the same day as the Oklahoma City bombing. As you can imagine, his report got buried faster than a Republican investigating a Republican. Now he will apply his slipping skills to uncover the hidden secret in Charlie's speech. Please welcome Advanced Toastmaster Gold, Mr. Stephen Morgan.
Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, our guests. Charlie, like, hey, I have to say this right up front, you didn't meet the speech objectives, fact-finding report, this just wasn't it, sorry. That's because that's not what you were doing. You were giving us a run-through of what you plan to do for the International Speech Contest next week. With that in mind, I completely ignore the questions here, and I have a different set of goals and ideas for you. I'm not looking for the standard evaluation format. If you're going for international speech, you are looking for the things to really throw you forward. You did a lot of good stuff, but I'm not aiming and focusing on that. First thing I'll throw out to you, the canard of the International Speech Contest and all of our contests. You do have an introduction. It is your title. It's the only introduction you get. You need to make it worthwhile. It needs to spark interest. That's what it needs to do. And the one you have now is not really sparking interest. It needs an action, a verb in there. Your opening needs to grab attention. The title sparks the interest, the opening grabs the attention. And you had a little bit with it of those who commit suicide and the statistics or whatnot. I'm thinking you want to go for something more intense though. Stop being so great. You use the word great so many times, I want to take out the strap. And that might be the best way to help you stop using it. Think about that. Since you're focusing on the darkness, at least within your title, and you told us you were taking us there, but then you left that out. And you could take that metaphor into so many ways if you draw it all the way through the whole thing. Darkness in terms of the things you cannot see, the way it feels, and all how it can tie through. If you want to work with that one more, that would be a great way to tie it all together better. Or if you just want to say you're coming out of the closet, that would work too, I suppose. Choreograph. Now, you did a really good job of the pacing back and forth to give us the idea of being in the closet. You could have done more with the running in, trying to hit the wall, and actually showing that. The rest of the time, your arms were just doing this. You want to choreograph throughout the whole thing, where you'll be standing, what your body will be doing at every part so that it has a meaning and it's not just wandering off and potentially distracting. Less is more. You want to use fewer words for greater impact, especially if it allows you to pause longer. That would be the ideal there. Emote. You were talking and telling us about things that were heavily and incredibly emotional. And as you've done in many of your speeches, you always try to back off from that. And this is where you want to dive in and really do it. Because if you want us to feel it, you're going to have to feel it. And I know it's a painful and awful thing that you went through. But to be able to have us feel it will help possibly save others going forward. The question to ask at the end, putting the coaching hat on, is when you're done, what do you want us to think or feel or do? It should be a very simple statement, and whatever that is, that defines your conclusion. Your conclusion should be specifically aimed so that that is exactly where we end up. So figure out what that statement is and make that base your conclusion. Set your title, get your opening set, and we'll see how far into the darkness you can take us next week. Mr. Jaye.
Two excellent evaluations by both Stephen and Jonathan. And can we get 1 minute on the clock to write some notes? Timer's report, that's where we are. Mrs. Jaye.
Yeah, this is a tough one here. Jonathan Dunn, I was screaming for you to stop. 3 minutes and 33 seconds. I've been there, so I know. And I'm like, stop, just don't say those last 5 words.
You should have thrown something at him.
Stephen Morgan was a little luckier. I think he heard me screaming as well. 3 minutes and 27 seconds.
All right. All right, and can we get a Functionaries report, starting with our grammarian for this evening, Mrs. Renee Taylor.
What first?
Let's go, grammarian.
Both of them.
Yes. Start with
Okay,
that one.
thank you. So the word of the day was used by Jonathan and Stephen. And for the grammar, Pardeep, not really that it was a colorful statement, but everyone kind of did kind of when you have mentioned the statistic about blind women are less likely to develop breast cancer. Charlie, you have several. Let me take you to the dark. Bite my lip bloody. I kind of actually visualized it when you said it. If you want God to listen to you, because He is very busy. And those I thought were very, catching. Kristin, for you, a really long rabbit hole. And Julian, coffee houses in Amsterdam that don't sell coffee. Thought that was also good.
All right.
I'll go right into the Oz. Okay. Pardeep, you had 3 Oz, 2 double clutches, and 2 light stows. I had 2 ums. Kristin, you had 1 bridge word. Okay, Richard, you had 2 ums and 1 bridge word, and that was all I caught.
All right. At this time, we also take a moment to vote for most improved, if we haven't done that yet as well. Most improved. Any other functionaries reports? Did I miss something? We got timer. That. And we will give a couple of minutes for Mr. Koto to tally the votes and for bringing me the awards for the evening.
Not you, it goes to the president.
It will go to the presidents, but
Give us a general evaluation.
give us a general evaluation. So for tonight's meeting, excellent job, starting on time, being here, Sergeant of Arms as well as Toastmaster. Kristen's first time as Toastmaster, so I think keeping us going through. We only had 2 speeches, so I would have liked to have seen a few more table topics, but our limited attendance this evening put a damper on that. For your information, we typically have anywhere from 15 to 20 members, so it's a little bit lighter of an evening, on and off night. We are going to end certainly on time. We had great evaluations, great speeches. There's typically more positivity from an evaluation. Charlie would preferred some, how can he improve the international speech, so we'd like to be as uplifting as possible. Great speech, great evaluations. And that's all I've got. So right now I'll turn it back over to our president, Jaye Majors.
Good evening again, fellow Toastmasters and guests. It has been another fun evening, in my opinion. How are we doing with tallying up everything? Are we in a good place?
We're on
We're taking a while. All right, let us move into announcements. Who has some announcements?
Yes.
Guests, okay. Let's have our guests stand up and tell us what you thought of the meeting.
I'm very impressed with all of your speaking. And those evaluations were amazing to hear it and then to be able to speak about it in such detail. And just a very fun atmosphere. I enjoyed it. I think you all did a wonderful job.
Thank you. I have to hop on with her comments and stuff. You all pretty funny. And entertaining. So you did a great job. Thank you.
And you want to come next week because we're doing the actual contest.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. All right, do we have any announcements? Thank you.
Contest.
Yes. Next week, February 22nd, our meeting here is our club contest. We all need to get here earlier. We'll be setting up and organizing, and like I said, with Tony not here, we're gonna really need everybody pitching in. I know that Gail has been organizing the judges, the people that we need from outside the club, and it is top secret. You won't know who they are until they are actually here next week. And I'm going to be in communication with her as well. Does anybody have any comments about next week? Since Tony was kind of taking the chair and now she's dropped out, Gail and her were working together. I haven't heard a whole lot from Gail with her being on vacation. But we're going to need our crew, all our hands on deck next week to fill some of the positions and roles. How many here are going to be speaking? All international? Who's doing table topics? Yeah, and I may decide not to if we need help with supporting everything else. So that's where we stand there. Did you have a question?
Who's the secretary?
Tony.
Tony?
No, tonight.
Me.
You
You are?
I've been taking notes.
Yeah, I've got the other pages too. So next week is going to be a real hectic week. I'm going to try to get out some announcements on, or I will get out through Easy Speak to all of our members to be here, to support and fill some of the roles.
Actually, just 3 speakers or different speakers from other clubs too?
It's just for our club, and 3 people have signed up to do the international speech part, and there are several people, and some of them are not here tonight, that we're going to do table topics. So we'd like to at least have 3 to 5 table topics as well, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but you can have more than 3, I mean, we can have as many speakers from the club as want to
Yeah,
compete.
as one to
So
compete.
if
As long as they've done 6
You don't
So
qualify.
I was trying to understand when she said it would be very hectic, so,
For her, she's the president.
Yeah, and we have to have functionary roles for each one of the speakers. We have to have judges and people that are monitoring what's going on. The speakers go out of the room, the table topics people, they come back in, they get their topic, blah, blah, blah. So we have to have people to manage the different parts. All right, so did that. Okay. Anyone with another announcement?
Just that I will be sending out a reminder later this week that our club dues are coming up. So we need to get those in as many as possible by March 1st, ideally, so we can get the incentives for our club. That's it.
If you can come prepared next week.
Cash a check,
Yeah,
we can pay online now.
yeah, you can pay online. But if you do, please let Richard know or print off a copy of where you paid and bring it for him or email it to him so that he'll know who paid, because that was a problem last year with the online. If you don't want to pay online because it saves us money, bring cash or check to either our meeting next week or the week after, please. We need to get at least our 7 of 7, 7 by 7 in. That's what I call it.
It's 9.
9, it's 9, yeah.
Now, so online, we can also pay the club dues?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it goes to our bank account, and then Richard will still be remitting the portion that goes to TI.
Through online meeting through the Toastmasters website? Or
No,
our website?
ours,
Our website. okay.
Square.
Square, okay.
all right, so you can pay either way. On that.
And I'll include instructions.
Yeah, there it is. That's
Yeah.
it.
And this obviously tries to help our treasury some because we have things we want to do going forward. And we're going to talk in our EC meeting about a few of the other things as well. Okay, any other announcements from anyone? Wanted to bring back up what I started out with at the first of the meeting. Do I have any thoughts, or does anybody want to give me some feedback on that? On collecting for a Flowers for Tony.
I think we'd all be happy to chip in $5 to $10. I mean, it
Yeah.
can be an eye on cash, but not even from the club level, I think on a personal level. I don't know anybody here that wouldn't be open for.
That's why I brought it up, to put it out there to anybody, if you felt like that. I think if we're all in, that would be really good, and then we can get some flowers ordered and have them sent to her.
But that has to be at the right, Steve, and the club can't.
It can't come out of club.
Yeah, it can't come.
Can't come out of the.
You should get her a bell that makes sounds,
There you go.
that sings.
All right, so after we close, we can all
Yeah.
gather around and handle that. Okay, let's go to the, what we're all waiting for now. Our first award is our club award, the Tim Chastain Award. It goes to someone who has stepped up to take on some extra roles and to help out in especially the absence of Tony. Yeah, and that award tonight, the Tim Chastain Award, goes to Jonathan Dunn. You might not have got a evaluator, but.
You've done it for how many months now?
4 years.
What can I say? He's been trying lately, right? I keep getting the hints over there, so. The most improved Toastmaster for the week goes to our dark speaker, Charlie Bumblebeer. Best table topics. Senor Corto.
What a surprise.
Surprise, surprise, right? Best Evaluator Award, what can we say? Stephen Morgan.
Unanimous decision.
And finally, our Best Speaker Award goes to Charlie Bumblebeer. Okay, guys, that's it for tonight. Yep. And if we have this thing, meeting adjourned.